started to soften, so did I. And you both feel together. If you were real sensitive to me, when I feel of you here, you'd already be given. See? That means something to my horse. That's what a soft feel, that's what I do to get a soft feel right there. And I want you to get at least a mental picture of what a horse operating on a feel is. Where hopefully it looks good to you, that you'll want that you'll strive for that. So this is one example of a feel. See? I could even take on this rope right here like this. See? That's operating on a feel. See? I could do this and say get back. See? And I could do this and say get over. Without touching him. Your energy moves the horse. Most people think of a feel as when you touch something or someone and what it feels like to your fingers, but a feel can have 1,000 different definitions. Sometimes feel is a mental thing. Sometimes feel can happen clear across the arena. That's what I'm looking for there. Sort of an invitation from the horse to come to you. It's not always physical. Sometimes it's mental. When you have the physical working for you when you're younger, you ride with 90% physical and 10% mental. But if you could learn how to use 90% mental and 10% physical, you'd be better off. I'm looking for the horse to learn how to follow a feel. It's supposed to take that much. A little bit more. There. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Everything's a dance. Everything you do with a horse, it's a dance.
Howdy. Today I come to you with principle number 3 from the 7P Principles of a Godly Living. Principle number 3 is on reverence, meaning to have a great attitude of honor and or respect. I showed you that clip from the movie Buck with Buck Brenneman to make a point on this, of course. Several years ago when Buck was in town promoting that movie here in Oklahoma City, there was a one-time showing and the word was out that he was going to be there to answer questions or to discuss that movie. So I really had a passion and desire to meet this man. I knew what he stood for as far as a trainer goes. I knew how he treated people as well as animals and a little bit of a background and history of his. And so I made it a point to position myself that if in any slight inkling I was going to get to meet and talk to this gentleman. So what did I do to prepare myself for that? One, I arrived quite a bit early for that movie appearance. I positioned myself in the center of that theater, right down near the front rows, in an uncomfortable position to watch that movie, but I wanted to position myself that if the off chance I was going to get to meet Mr. Brenneman. Well, my task paid off. When that movie was over, not only did Mr. Brenneman answer a few of my questions and friends' questions, but we got to visit with him for a short time after the theater, shake his hand, and just thank him for what he does in the horse industry. And I say that for a reason. Positioning yourself is an important thing in life. We position ourselves for various different things. If you have a job that you want to be successful at, you try to put yourself in a position to be a success. You do and you go beyond the ordinary measures. If you want to be a great leader, for example, you study, you read, and you do things that great leaders do. If you want to be financially successful, you do things that financially successful people do. You don't acquire large amounts of debt, you don't do certain things such as that. That would be foolish to make yourself successful. Today I'm standing in front of the bucking chutes here at the Norman Roundup Club in Norman, Oklahoma. And in a few days, this place is going to be full of contestants riding wild bulls to compete. And throughout the year, there'll be a variety of other events, such as barrels and so forth. Now, all those contestants have prepared themselves for this event. These young men and ladies that compete out here don't just come out here on a whim and think they're going to go home with the prize or the jackpot. They've prepared themselves. They have studied their routines. They have done things that most normal people won't do in order to be successful at what they do. These young men that'll be riding these bulls in the next few days, I promise you most of them didn't arrive just right before the bell went off. They got here early. They studied what they were about to ride. They looked at the bulls that they were about to ride. They talked. They got information from other people. They prepared themselves. They positioned themselves for success on these rides. Now, why do I say all this, again, on a spiritual note? Well, it's just like our relationship with God. And I want to read to you today out of 2 Corinthians 7:1, and I'm going to be reading it from a contemporary English version because I like the way it was stated here. It says, "My friends, God has made us these promises so that we should stay away from everything that keeps our bodies and spirits from being clean. We should honor God and try to be completely like Him." So, what does that have to do with Scripture? And what does that have to do with anything that our spiritual life is like? Well, let me ask you something. I don't know about in your house, but one of the worst mornings that we generally have in our family, especially when my kids were younger, was Sunday mornings as we were preparing for church. The day of days that we're supposed to be more relaxed, going ready to worship, have a great time, we're going to learn about God, seem to be the most arguments, the most fusses, the most, just amazing times trying to prepare for church. It was always noisy in the car. And when we would get to church, it would be just like, oh my goodness, we finally made it here. And then we would sit through the sermon that the pastor had prepared. Probably did a great job, but in my heart of hearts, maybe wasn't the best because it didn't reach me. But then now that I think about it, it wasn't necessarily the pastor's fault. He did what he was supposed to do. I didn't position myself better and be prepared to hear what God had to say. I showed up late, walked in the door at the last minute. Stress, chaos was going on. I sat down with the desire that thank goodness we're finally here. Let's get this over with mentality. Well, many times Christians do the same thing with our spiritual walk with God. Yeah, we'll make time. We'll squeeze in 2 or 3 minutes for God. We may say a little bit of prayer right before we eat something because that's what we've been trained to do. But I want to make a challenge to you. If you're going to church somewhere and you don't feel like much is being gained from that experience, or you don't feel that that pastor is speaking to you, I first want to challenge you to check yourself. Are you preparing yourself for what God has to say? Are you positioning yourself for greatness? So many times I notice that at the beginning of a church service, the seats will be just about half full. But by about the second song in, the place may be packed out. Imagine if everybody had arrived on time, and how many people would have been ready for the reverence of God, the honor of God. Show God some honor. Show your pastor some honor and respect. Have a heart of reverence for them. Show up on time. Show up early. Give what you can of your heart and your time to Him. Make enough time for God to be there for you. So my challenge to you this week, try to show up at church just a few minutes early. Try to position yourself for greatness in that. Instead of getting in the back row, because that's what's left, try to get up near the front to hear what God has to say. Be prepared. Be vigilant. Be prepared for that fight. Our warriors going into battle on a daily basis didn't just show up on that battlefield. They've been preparing for a long time for that. And we need to do that as Christians on a daily basis to prepare our battle with God. We need to prepare for that. I thank you for all that you've done. I thank you for listening to these messages and the Norman Roundup Club for allowing us to be here today. Come out and root these guys on out here. They work hard for what they do and they've prepared themselves well. But again, take time this week. Prepare yourself for God and accept this challenge with greatness. Position yourself for greatness. Not just in your spiritual life, but do it in your job as well. Go into it with an anticipation to make a difference in anybody that you meet around you. Hope you guys have a great week and a blessed week, and look forward to talking to you next week.